Do you know how many people told me no? Any given fundraising, I go through 100 to 120 calls. Almost 90% says no. Some people even ghost you. But one person putting a bet on you will erase all of that. I always felt like a co-founder at Careem. I've ended up launching 11 out of 15 markets. I was traveling every single week, 8 years, with barely any stop.
Careem, Uber acquisition, and then you go into bricks. Did you take any time off?
I was planning to take a gap year.
Which lasted a month.
Which lasted a month. If you look at any modern economy today, construction is one of the main pillars. Saudi has the largest layers from manufacturer to the end customer, around 7 to 8 layers. This whole industry is run through pen and paper and WhatsApp groups, and it's not digitized. No one trying to actually disrupt that market. I said, okay, let's start.
Today's guest is Ibrahim Manna. Ibrahim is the founder and CEO of Bricks, the Saudi construction tech company disrupting one of the region's largest and most offline industries. Before that, Ibrahim spent 8 years at Careem as one of the core architects of its expansion, launching 11 out of 15 markets ahead of the company's eventual $3.1 billion acquisition by Uber back in 2019. In this episode, there are some deep cuts. We talk through his first startup delivering DVDs at 18, how Careem empowered operators like founders, and what it really takes to scale into markets like Iraq and Jordan. We also explore how buying his own house at the height of the pandemic led to the creation of Bricks, and how the company is using technology to work with, not against, entrenched contractor behaviours. I'm super grateful to Ibrahim for coming on the podcast. He doesn't do a lot of podcasts. I believe the last podcast that he did was 13 years ago. So it was an absolute joy to have him on. More than anything else, lovely, lovely guy, as well as being one of the grittiest and most incredible founders. I hope that you find this conversation as valuable as I did. But before we get into it, Warren Buffett once said, the stock market is designed to transfer money from the active to the patient. And Lebanese-American mathematician Nassim Nicholas Taleb reminded us that you cannot predict, you can only get ready. Those two insights define today's investing environment. You don't win by guessing the next move. You win by preparing, cutting through the noise, and letting discipline compound over time. That's exactly what Sarwa delivers. Sarwa's modern platform is grounded in simplicity and lets you trade stocks, ETFs, crypto, options, and high-yield savings, all in one app. They keep your fees low, so more of your money goes to work, with minimums as low as $500. Sarwa is loved by experts, not just beginners. Whether you're a first-timer, an active investor, or a day trader, you'll join hundreds of thousands of users who choose Sarwa to grow their wealth. As a FWDstart listener, you get $200 when you open a new account with code FWDstart. All the details are in the description. And if you're chatting to the team, please do tell them that JB sent you. So, what are you waiting for? Get started in minutes and take control of your money your way. Sarwa is regulated by the ADGM, Financial Services Regulatory Authority. The information shared in this segment is for educational purposes only and should not be considered financial advice. Investing involves risk, and past performance is not indicative of future results. If you've ever tried opening a business account in the UAE, you know the drill. Endless paperwork, minimum balance requirements, and traditional providers that move at the speed of bureaucracy, shall we say. HubPay, however, was built to change that. It's a fully digital ADGM regulated fintech platform that gives UAE businesses instant access to multi-currency accounts with named IBAN in 30 plus currencies, payment links, payroll, and much, much more. There's no hidden fees, there's no minimum balance, and if you're like me, you're in a hurry, there's no waiting. It's amazing. So whether you're a startup who's paying contractors in Asia, or you're a scale-up managing suppliers in Europe, or even if you're an enterprise running treasury across multiple geographies, with HubPay, you can open a business account and become financially operational within a week. Can you imagine a week? No paperwork, no branch visits, no barriers. It's trusted by 1,000 plus UAE SMEs from tech startups all the way up to mid-market enterprises. So what are you waiting for? Open your HubPay business account today and get a 30-day free trial at wearehubpay.com/pricing and scale your UAE business with confidence.
Ibrahim, very welcome to the podcast. Thanks so much for joining me.
Thank you for inviting me.
So in preparation for this, I reached out to Zach from Class 5 Global, a former colleague and a backer of Bricks now as
Great
well.
friend, yeah.
Absolutely. So I asked him, I was like, what should I ask Ibrahim? You know, what questions? And one of the things that he mentioned was definitely ask him about his prior entrepreneurial endeavours. And he said the one word that he used to characterize you is sort of persistent. And what I was really struck by, I think, when looking back to sort of your earliest days up until the present, was you've sort of always been focused on the same problem. From when you first started to now, it's very much getting things from point A to point B. The things that you've been moving have changed. So it might be DVDs, or it's food, it's groceries, it's laundry, it's people, it's cars. And food again with the launch of the super app, and then obviously now we have building materials. But it's very much, it's always been about moving things as efficiently and as effectively as possible. Why?
Yeah, funny enough, I've never thought about it this way. So it's a great way to think about it. I always believe that there's a problem statement or a challenge, and fulfillment usually is a part of the problem statement, right? Yeah. And this is why we end up in a lot of cases managing the fulfillment, or at least creating a marketplace where there's different players, and they are being managed through us, like either through prior experiences or through bricks at this case of basically making sure that they fulfill. Because if you think about it, in a lot of these different cases, reliability was always questioned. Like whether it's the food delivery, or whether it was taxis and rides, or whether it was building materials, fulfillment reliability was a problem. It wasn't the only problem. I think in a lot of cases, whenever I'm fundraising in the West, a lot of people, they look at this piece or part of the business as the unattractive part, right? Like, why are you delivering? And I think what a lot of people don't understand is we don't have the same luxury of having these reliable services. They take it for granted. So unfortunately, right now, what we've realized, at least at Bricks, is once, and I think this was the point where we saw a turning point, right? Where we've realized that a lot of people, due to seasonality, it was Ramadan, stopped taking calls and stopped delivering on time and took longer. And because we were like on it and we were delivering on time and we were reliable, from that moment onwards, our growth trajectory was much larger and bigger than what it was prior to that.
Was that initial sort of, kernel of an idea, if we were to go back to the very, very early days, and I suppose it's become a cliche that you often find with the best founders that they start exceptionally early and they're always sort of entrepreneurial from a very young age. And obviously you kick off with DVD on wheels.
Correct.
What, 18 years old?
I was 18, yes.
Why?
I loved movies, I guess.
It's as simple as that.
As simple as that. I loved movies, and I thought, I wasn't thinking about it the right way, right? Like you were thinking about, okay, what's cool? Yeah. What's something that I would love to be associated with, right? The way that you think about business is much different, right? So later in the day, and I think, I think prior to Careem, I actually didn't think about businesses the same way. So Careem was a turning point for me as well in the way that I was thinking about problem statements and how do I need to look at these businesses, right? So back in the days, it was more about, okay, what is this business about? How am I, associated with it? Am I proud about, being identified as that business, right? Because at some point, those lines become very blurry, where you become your business and your business becomes you. And I believe in every business when it got, shut down or like transitioned to the next phase, I lived with an identity crisis for a while. I didn't know what to define myself, right? And it became a challenge.
Were you looking at, like Netflix had been around since 97. Were you looking at other sort of business models and you were going, okay, I think we can apply this in this context, or what was it sort of born out of?
I think at some case we were looking at Netflix, and back in the days, by the way, Netflix wasn't a streaming service. It was more of a exchanging service, right? You get your DVDs and then you give it back and you get new ones, and it was more of a subscription model, right? And I think that lasted for 3 years. Yeah. And then we actually started thinking, okay, there's a much bigger market out there. And this is back in 2008, right? Where I was, we created an aggregator for food, for laundry, for groceries, and DVDs as well. So
I was going to ask, what did that actually look like from like a from a platform perspective? It seems like a crazy thing to do, to do that, to expand from you're like, okay, we'll do DVDs, and then we're going to do everything in an hour. Right? It seems like, it sounds nightmarish operationally, and I find it really interesting as well that you sort of, you sort of predate this recent obsession that like quick commerce has with sort of the arbitrary sort of time constraints that they set. Okay, it's going to be 15-minute or 20-minute delivery, but you were promising an hour all the way back then. What did that look like logistically?
Sure. Keep in mind that was, I think, the year where like the iPhone was launched or prior, like something
it was just
like that.
Yeah.
So like there were no apps. There's nothing called apps back then, right? So it was a website, and there was a call center where you can call and place an order, right? And back in the days, I think people were used to, at least in Jordan, with free delivery. So this was premium delivery that you had to pay for. So it was a bit early. Logistically, what we've realized is that one of the fast food restaurants, their delivery employees finished their shift at 4. So we started the business at 4 p.m. and it lasts until midnight, right? Because I had to run that business while being in college as well. So in university. So we took a lot of their learnings and we've managed to actually teach ourselves on the go on what does it mean to actually deliver better, right? And we didn't have any of the sophistication in thinking where, you have the geofencing and certain. And luckily, I think Amman, Jordan is a much smaller city where you can actually operate, with a crew rather than, defining zones. So you can deliver from, all the way from point A to point B and deliver within 30 minutes maximum, right? So that helped. I think if that proposition was in Riyadh,
becomes a lot more
that
difficult.
would have been much different.
Point A to point B it can be quite a bit away.
Exactly.
What was it like at that time from a funding perspective? This was like the very early days of Oasis 500, wasn't it? Like this was sort of like just only kicking off. Did you have a hard time convincing people of that this business model made sense?
Yeah, I think we spoke about this a bit earlier, like where our common friend Ahmed Taqatqa had actually sat down with me. We had coffee and he explained to me the whole, concept of entrepreneurship, investments, angels, VCs. And for me, that was honestly the first time I've ever heard of it, right? And then I think in Jordan, the Oasis 500 was setting shop, and I was Wheels Express back then was part of the first wave, where we've actually worked closely with them. And I think one of the great things about incubators, and I would recommend a lot of the first-time founders to actually go through this experience. It's a learning experience, right? You get to learn a lot of these different things. So it's a structured learning experience where they'll tell you more about how to pitch, how to think about your business, how to, organize it, how to actually approach investors. I think prior to that, if you wanted to raise funds, it was mostly from family and friends, right? And I got a small amount from my father. My two partners got a small amount from their father as well. And this is how we started. And then with the help of Oasis 500 and with a lot of different angels that were part of their network, we've managed to actually raise a small amount as well.
I'm led to believe, did you do a lot of deliveries yourself?
I did.
During that time as well? Is there a story regarding a shisha delivery?
Yeah.
Can you tell the story?
Yeah, sure. So I once, we were growing so fast, but with wrong unit economics, unfortunately. So at that point, I didn't know that the faster we grow, the faster we were actually gonna die. And at some point, all the delivery people were out, and we were like part of our offering was shisha. So there was this order that was right next to the office, and it was so late.
Yeah.
And I got to a point where I said, look, I'm gonna go and deliver it myself.
Roll up the sleeves.
And funny enough, the person who have actually opened the door is one of my high school colleagues who I haven't seen for the past 5 years. So imagine me showing up with 2 shishas at your doorstep.
What's happened?
As the delivery man.
That's so funny.
Yeah, that's so funny.
And then, how big was the team?
In Wheels Express, we were, I think around, at the highest, we were around 20 people.
Okay, amazing.
20.
And in terms of like, was it all like sort of similar age to yourself in terms of like colleagues?
Yeah,
or
we
like,
were like
it was
all kids.
figuring it out. Okay.
Yeah, we were all like, so basically we've ended up with, friends and friends of friends working together, right? And I think with the delivery men that were on the crew, these were basically, as I told you earlier, delivery crew of a fast food restaurant, right? That were joining us, and they kept referring one another.
And then it eventually shuts down.
I think it was too early. The way that
I was going to
look at
say
it.
that's sort of how that's the
Was too early.
impression that I got as well from that.
I feel two things, right? One, it was too early, and then the market size is quite small and limited.
Did you feel like that at the time, though? Did you think it
No,
was?
I didn't. But I was looking at other markets, so I believed. I believed at that point there was this other startup called Brown Bag in UAE, in Dubai. That I've actually met the team at some point, and I've realized that, man, Dubai is a much bigger market.
This is where you need to be.
This is where I need to be. So
Yeah.
I've set my eye on basically coming to Dubai at some point.
And you did.
I did.
Subsequent to that,
I
yeah.
did.
What I found really interesting, though, is I was reading, I think it was an interview that you did with Wamda when Wheels Express shut down.
Yeah.
And you were self-reflective, but you were very mature in your outlook. There was no sort of sense of self-pity. It was very much like, this has happened. It is what it is. Move on to the next thing.
Yeah.
Did you feel like that at the time, or were you projecting to an extent, or were you able to process it and go, okay, rationally, we were too early, just doesn't make sense. Let's try again somewhere else.
Look, in all experiences, I don't want to eliminate, any lacking from my end as well, right? So a lot of these different challenges happened because I wasn't as experienced as I needed to be, right? But I guess this is the part where we need to start thinking about failure in a different perspective. I wear failure as a badge of honor. Like for me, it's experience. It's I would much rather invest in someone who tried and failed rather than someone who's starting fresh, honestly. And I feel like this, I've realized that you end up with, you don't learn what you need to do, you learn what you need not to replicate again, right? So basically you avoid things that you potentially can avoid, right? Because in every business, you'll have different circumstances and you wouldn't know potentially what you need to do. Otherwise, we would have all been successful, right? But the reality is that you start avoiding challenges. So for me, I've always looked at it differently. At the moment, it sucks. It's not a great feeling. You feel like it's the doomsday or the end of the universe. Yeah. But the reality is, after a very short period of time, you just shake it off and try again.
Do you think that's some like innate ability that you've always had in terms of your outlook, or is that a learned behavior that you've developed over time?
I think with time you become more mature. I think with age as well you become more mature. But resilience, I found that really what defines an entrepreneur from another is how much you have resilience and grit, right? If you don't have that, it's very challenging for you to actually make it, right? Yeah. It's a series of bad experiments and bad events that one good event will erase all of your prior attempts, right? So if you don't go through this, like I was just talking to a friend about fundraising. So like, it sucks and it's like terrible and it's not comfortable. So man, like, do you know how many people told me no? I told them at any given fundraising, I go through 100 to 120 calls. And like almost 90% says no, right? Some people even ghost you, right? But one person, putting a bet on you will erase all of that, right? So it is a persistence game. It is all about having grit.
Game of who can survive the longest. I think is the way
you show up every day.
Yeah. You get lucky eventually.
Yeah.
I suppose if you keep putting yourself in those positions.
True.
You moved to Dubai then, ship and collect. Shortly, was it 3 years?
It was 3 years. Yes.
3 years there. And then Careem thereafter.
Yeah.
How does Careem come about?
I think Careem at that point, I was meeting Magnus. And when we met, I remember it was more of a chit chat, right? It wasn't, I wasn't expecting anything out of it. And it wasn't a job interview. And at some point, Magnus said, like, man, you have to meet Mudassar. And we were sitting in Media One, which is like the office, like the hotel next to the Shadow Tower where Careem is. So like, you have to meet Mudassar. So like, okay, I'll meet Mudassar.
Sure.
So we went up to the office. I met Mudassar, spoke for like a good 2 hours.
During that same meeting?
Yeah, same meeting.
Oh, wow,
so
okay.
we finished with Magnus and said, like, you have to come with me and meet Mudassar. Met Mudassar, spent a good, I forgot, like an hour or two. And then said like, you have to speak to Abdullah. So like, Abdullah is
You really did the rounds.
So yeah, I spoke to Abdullah as well.
Yeah.
And then, they came back with an offer that, you join us. We are gonna change the world.
Yeah.
This is the problem statement. I was quite impressed by a different way of thinking about business, right? I've always thought about business prior to that moment is, this is an opportunity for me to make money. They were not discussing that. They were more discussing about the problem statement. And they were discussing about how are we gonna create a institute that inspires people and improve their lives. And I was blown away by the vision, right? Like, and we were not talking about getting rich. Like basically the monetary value of it was it would happen if we managed to do this.
It's a byproduct
of it, right? So you manage to change people's life and enhance it, and you create an institute that inspires others. We will automatically have that. And for me, this is a new way of looking at the business. It was so refreshing.
Yeah.
I believed in it. I still believe in it. I still believe that whatever we have done at Careem is an extension of what I'm doing today at Bricks, and honestly of what I'm gonna do moving forward. I think that purpose, once you have purpose in life, it becomes it becomes a guiding principle for you moving forward.
Yeah, the reason to get up.
Exactly.
It always helps.
Yeah.
How big was the team at the time?
Careem,
Yeah.
I was colleague number 25.
Okay.
So very, very small. Like you would shake everyone's hand in the morning. Good morning, good morning, good morning, right? That was too small.
What was the transition from being a founder and on your own into, I suppose, being an operator as part of a larger team? Was that transition difficult? Was it easy?
I think the founders of Careem were smart in the way that they positioned it, right? I've never felt that I was an operator. I always felt like a co-founder at Careem. I was empowered to take decisions. I was given a budget and a few guardrails here and there, and off I go. Like I remember a lot of the markets that I've ended up launching, it was my initiative with, like maybe once in a month catch up, right? Yeah. I'm gonna launch Iraq. All right, off you go.
Right? Chat next month.
Yeah, I'm gonna head to. I'm telling you, like I had a busy schedule. I've ended up launching 11 out of 15 markets, and I've ended up, I was traveling every single week for a good 8 years, with barely any stops. Right? If I visit the first market at the beginning of the quarter, I need a quarter to visit them again, and I was one of the few connections between what we used to call back then mountain peaks, which are the cities and the countries that we operated.
Okay, interesting. I hadn't heard that.
And the base camp, right?
Okay.
So I was that connection. Okay. And I took it seriously, and I made sure that I'm always there. Even when I was in these mountain peaks in the cities, I made sure that I dedicate enough time to speak to each and every colleague of ours, right? Where I give them a good, 15, 20, 30 minutes, chit chat, just to understand, okay, what are you going through? What are the challenges? How can I help you? How can I support you? By the time I'm talking to the GM of the country, I know everything at that stage, right?
You know better than
I got it from the bottom up.
That's interesting. And it's something I've heard really. There's a very, I think, specific type of founder that emerges from Careem. And I think it is due to that agency. What did you learn about leadership from that time. Was that something that was sort of very much driven from the top down, that sense of you own what you do?
So, we had values that we believed in. I'm a bit rusty on them, but, you go with, shooting to the moon, you're of service of others. And, a lot of these different values that we had, people embodied, right? And people were empowered, even, at the lowest layer of the hierarchy there. And it was quite flat back then. That people will correct you, right, and tell you, look, I don't think you are examining the right values here, right? And you would accept it, and you would actually thank them for the gift of feedback. And it was such a refreshing feeling where people can actually basically gift you feedback, help you, and you would look at it from a perspective of like, they care about me and they love me and this is why they want to tell me this. And I think we all started to uplift one another. I think the one thing that I loved about leadership at Careem is that the concept of leading from behind. Right? You want people to actually excel. You want people to be at the front, and you want to make sure that they get the credit that they deserve. And you want to be the force that pushes them forward rather than, you doing what you need to, the job that you need to do, right? So the way that I thought about it always was I was more of the coach rather than the player. There was multiple players that I needed to help and guide and support and remove any obstacles from their way.
How do you cultivate that atmosphere, though? Is it through hiring? Are you very selective in terms of the sort of person that you're hiring? Like, it seems like ego is just sort of
I think a big no-no was ego was a big no-no. And I think, I'm not against having ego. Sure. I'm against using it in the wrong way. I think in a lot of cases, you do need an ego to give you that boost and confidence, which is required, but you need to be also humbled in the right moment and in the right time, right? And that humility is actually quite important. I think hiring was one. I think having the right culture and values set by leadership and making sure that everyone understands it and investing enough time for people to actually understand it prior to joining. I remember we've let go of a lot of talented people that were not actually culturally fit.
How quick do you make that decision?
I think when they examine that they're not within the boundaries of that culture, I think quickly.
Okay.
Because it becomes, it does affect everyone, right?
Yeah.
So I think you need to be quick and straightforward when it comes to this.
Localization, I think, is one of these things that's always perceived as the great strength of Careem. Like, whether it's like, I don't know, the cash was such a differentiator in comparison to an Uber. And as you mentioned, you were responsible for so many of the market launches, 11 out of 15, which is just absolutely insane. And some of these, I imagine, were incredibly difficult for a variety, like whether it be, I don't know, like politically, just operationally, logistically, quite difficult. Can you talk to me about, I think, Jordan in particular?
Yeah.
Because this is somewhere where Zach mentioned when he was trying to be like, this was one of the smallest markets initially.
True.
And ended up being one of the very, very top markets. You mentioned something like it's like 80% market share at one point. Practically speaking, what does that look like?
I'll tell you the challenge, and each market has a different challenge. And I think personally, my challenge is that I needed to get myself familiar with the country on multiple levels.
Yeah.
So, like in a lot of these countries, I've never visited before. So I had to learn a bit about their culture, read about their history, examine their transportation system, take a taxi ride, if there's a metro, I'll take a metro, like just to understand what is an average citizen of that nation is offered in order for me to be able to offer something better, right? And then there's this whole value proposition where you need to understand how to get supply. I've always believed that in that marketplace, supply always comes prior to demand. If you didn't have cars, you wouldn't even be able to offer rides to anyone, right? So needed to understand, okay, who's the players? what is the ecosystem? I think Jordan was tough because Jordan did not have limousines back then and did not have alternative path other than taxi. And taxis, unfortunately, although at the end we managed to crack that segment, but at that moment that segment was very tough to crack. They were entirely against it. And I think the challenge in Jordan that we needed to rent cars, and we needed to get drivers to actually, get captains to get to ride those cars and offer the service. And instantly what happens is that you're acting in a very gray area, right? Where the police will start acting against you, sure. And stopping the cars, then there are fines, but the people are asking like, please, we want a better transportation mode here. Like, can you legalize it? So it was a battle, right? Between creating pressure points, between creating the service, offering a reliable service while going through all of this, and marketing it. Because the bigger it got, the more levers and leverage you had in order for you to actually get it legalized. And I think this is very similar in a lot of the different markets that we were in. Some markets were a bit advanced, and laws that needed to be changed. And a lot of these laws were from the 60s, right? And sure. The 70s that needed to be changed got changed quickly. Jordan, unfortunately, it took us 4 years to get it there.
Okay, yeah.
But, eventually it was done. And a lot of the people that, I've, with the team, of course, managed to get them to work on the platform. I still meet them every now and then when I go back home.
Sharing more stories.
Yeah.
Do you have any stories from your time launching Careem in Iraq?
Yeah, no, I'm not sure if this is podcast friendly, but
we can cut it if you want.
Look, no, Iraq was a great market. I had to figure out the different players in the Iraqi environment, sure. And basically who to hire, to manage who. And, sometimes with the lack of law, and I think that was a bit early when Iraq was still recovering out of the war, the tribal law will proceed, right? And in a lot of cases where, we had to let go of, a captain who was committing fraud, we had to go and meet, the sheikh of the tribe and explain ourselves. And, if he's not convinced, we need to figure out an arrangement. But it was a tough market to operate in, but we eventually managed to crack it. Iraq actually was one of the, fastest markets for us to grow. And we were not launching in Kurdistan like everyone else was. We started in Baghdad, and that opened the way for other startups and other companies to actually show up after us. But I do believe that because Careem went there and showed people that there is a path for you to actually create a sustainable business with that environment, a lot of different businesses actually started showing up.
Yeah, I think we did see the same thing sort of pan out in a Pakistan context as well. Unfortunately, obviously, with InDrive coming in and their model, I suppose, sort of usurping there. How did you keep your stamina up during those years? Because what you're describing is incredibly intense travel, long hours. It sounds both physically and mentally draining.
Yeah. First of all, I was younger.
Okay, well, that helps, I guess. That helps, yeah.
I think, I had a good support system. I think my wife, I owe her, a lot of gratitude, have, kept up with my crazy hours and, for me not being there and, having to raise the girls on her own with me showing up during the weekend, almost, non-existent for a while. I think also my team back then at Careem, we called it the Mountain Peak Base Camp, right? So we've created you can call it a company within a company, right? Because at that point I was managing emerging markets, and the other 4 big markets were managed by different managing directors. So I created an ecosystem around me where I got, someone who leads operations, someone who leads marketing, someone who leads finance, right? And these colleagues have managed to help me basically. So it wasn't no longer a one-man show. It was more about, we're a group of 5-6 people that will support 11 markets. And yes, I am showing up physically there, but that doesn't mean that, on a weekly basis, there's a call from the ops director to them, where marketing ships in, finance, and you name it.
Okay, interesting. The power of youth is important as,
Of course.
as far as, as far as that's concerned.
Yeah.
Was there anything that you launched during your time at Careem that you were convinced or thought was going to work really well that didn't and just flopped? And why?
I think the first product of why I actually was asked to come to Careem, I was initially responsible of creating a product for delivery.
Okay.
My experience, as you said earlier, is moving things from A to B. And hence, this is why I was asked to figure out what can we do with that massive fleet of cars that we have. So I came up with an idea called Careem Cash, where we would offer, collecting cash for digital services on the behalf of the suppliers, right? And I think back then we were talking to one of the airlines here in UAE, where we would offer to create a payment mode called Careem Cash, where you can actually pay for your ticket in cash in one of the Careem rides. And once you pay, we can release the ticket for you automatically. It didn't work not because it didn't work, not because it didn't have a need. I think, which is a great lesson for me back then, is because Careem needed to focus. And creating in a very early stage of the company parallel verticals and different revenue streams actually dilutes and distracts you from your main objective. And this is when I made the transition of launching new markets. And then eventually I became the GM of Jordan. And then I started, picking markets.
What was the most enjoyable part about working at Careem?
I think this whole sense of unity, right? We were one group, we were all together. I remember back in the days, we were always looking at this channel on Slack. Maybe prior to Slack, there was something else, but Slack, for lack of a better word. We were like monitoring growth and basically every 15 minutes. And in order, and it was exciting, right? Because every week we were breaking records. And, it was a team sport. Like all of us together, we were like breaking records, right? And there was this internal competition where like my city will beat your city and your city will come up with something greater than your city. And, like it's healthy competition from within. But overall, when you look at it collectively together, we've managed to, change how people transport in MENA. And hopefully, like with different services today, like with what's happening with the super app.
So we have Careem, Uber acquisition, exit, and then you go into bricks. Did you take any time off?
I took a month off.
Did you get bored? Why was that? Did you intend to go back into entrepreneurship straight away?
No, I didn't. I was planning to take a gap year.
Which lasted a month.
I
think that says a lot. That says an awful amount.
Look, honestly, you live once.
Yeah.
There's a lot to do. And, I'm still young, relatively young.
Yeah.
I feel energetic. I feel like there's a lot of challenges out there, which means that there's a lot of opportunities. I do feel like I'm well equipped to actually go through these challenges, regardless of the industry. And hopefully, I like being on this side of the game rather than on the other side.
Sure.
So I do believe that, we do need more experienced entrepreneurs to be out there, with purpose to help solve and uplift our region.
Tell me about BRKZ then. How does that come about?
Sure. So back in 2020, I was a bit courageous. A lot of people were thinking it's the end of the world.
Yep.
I took a decision of buying a house for my family.
Okay.
And I said, if we're going to die, it doesn't matter. If we live, great. Then we have a new house.
Great
right?
upside, yeah.
So, I've done that.
That's one way of looking at it,
Yeah. So I've ended up, getting a house and then starting to work on the house with a contractor.
Yeah.
Good company overall, but I've felt that there was a lot of questions that I had about, prices, about, like selection of different materials and basically transparency on when will these products arrive and all of these things. And I felt like the contractor wasn't equipped enough for them to give me an answer. And I was quite curious why. So I started asking a lot of questions, and I've realized that this whole industry is run through pen and paper, right? And WhatsApp groups, and it's not digitized. And there's a lot of different actors and layers in the value chain, which creates a lot of different operational hurdles, right? For anyone to actually operate in that industry. I had, around 100+ interviews. And this is, after me exiting Careem. I've started actually traveling. I went to Pakistan, I went to KSA, I went to Deira in Dubai, Egypt, just to ask people about it. And I've realized that this problem is common. It happens. And I've realized that Saudi has the largest layers all the way from the manufacturer to the end customer, around 7 to 8 layers. And I've realized that there's a big opportunity out there. If you look at any modern economy today, construction is one of the main pillars of any modern economy out there, right? And then you realize that there's not a lot of people in that industry that are trying to innovate. There are a lot of legacy players that are there for quite some time. And there's no one trying to actually empower and disrupt that market. And this is where I said, okay, let's start. And, we went through different iterations. I think when we started, it was more about the retailers rather than the contractors. Then we quickly realized after a couple of months is that the retailers have limited space, their orders are quite small, and yet their logistics are quite expensive. So we started tackling that industry from different angles rather than from the initial thought.
Most people would probably just go, oh, it's unfortunate that the contractor is encountering efficiencies as far as that's concerned. Probably not embark on hundreds of interviews across the entirety of the region. Was it a problem space that you were interested in prior to that? Was that very much like you encountered it then and
not really.
Just sort of took hold and you couldn't let it go?
No, not really.
Does that frequently happen where you encounter a problem and you're like, you just become sort of obsessed with it? Do you think it is obsession?
No, it's not. It's not obsession.
No.
I'm not very attached to the industry well, to be honest. I'm more passionate about the journey.
Sure.
So the journey is what I'm passionate about. The journey of, creating something meaningful that has impact, creating a team that has the right kind of culture, that embodies the right values, and something that grows massively, right? And when you think about things that grow massively, they are naturally part of a large industry. So if you look at industries today, what are the large industries, right? Like there's construction, there's transportation, travel, there's hospitality, there's banking, right? So these are common themes wherever you go in any country, right? And I feel like construction had a gap that no one was actively trying to fill. I still feel like we don't have enough startups in this domain as well. And I feel like there can be, like a couple of bricks rather than one of us, right? And I feel like there has to be. I think that whole industry and ecosystem is quite large, yet the people going after it are not too many.
When it comes to trust, then obviously there's a trust element with Careem as well, as far as getting customers to trust to use the platform, etc.
Yeah,
it's quite a different story, I'd imagine, with the construction side of things. You've really entrenched behaviours? Because you mentioned like it's phone, it's paper, it's probably opaque pricing structures, timelines as far as deliveries is concerned. So how do you establish that trust? Or how did you? How are you establishing?
Let me tell you one thing. I think I thought captains were tough to attract. I was wrong.
Okay. Tell
Contractors are a tough crowd.
Yeah.
But yet, as any rational business, right? There is a problem statement. And I think the challenge with contractors, at least from my point of view, is a lot of people got used to doing things in a certain manner. And this is often where it becomes a bit of a challenge to show them a different way of doing things, right? And I think one of the things that I've learned through my journey, it's very hard to change habits. And you have to start working around those habits and trying to enhance it rather than trying to change it. So, for example, one of the things that we heavily rely on is WhatsApp. They use WhatsApp heavily. We use WhatsApp heavily. And we make sure that it's a low digital touch point kind of product in order for us to be able to capture that demand and give them, a digital response through channels that they are comfortable with. And if you want to, offer it to someone who's technology more savvy and wants to basically use the whole suite of things that we have created, that exists as well. So you can use it as basic as you want it. And you can go as sophisticated as you want with technology, with what we have created.
That's what I found really interesting was obviously playing around with just the web version, shall we say, that's accessible online it's a really interesting juxtaposition of like the size of things and the types of things that you're ordering and the ease of use in terms of just slotting in like the numbers that you want, whether it be in tons or whatever the sort of unit of measurement might be. How much of that was sort of borne out through your conversations with suppliers and contractors and what you want from this?
We had to make it as simple as possible. Today, I think one testing measure was always asking a product manager, if your parents are able to place an order here, then that would fly, right? Without much onboarding. We wanted to get to a point where there's a product that is straightforward. Like if you notice, even when you raise, for example, a request for quotation, it doesn't take you to a different page. It doesn't ask you to click on the cart, right? It's the same page right there for you to actually click on it. Write big buttons, clear text. There's no UX can be much better, but what we were solving for is more for you to be able to natively go through it without much hassle.
Now that you've explained it, it makes so much sense.
We could have made it more fancier than that.
It does remind me, and I don't mean it in a disparaging way, but it's like, I don't know, you get like a phone with really big buttons for like your grandparent. It does sort of, because it's so straightforward. That's really interesting.
You have to take it step by step, right? I believe like different iterations in the future will be more advanced. But we are in an industry where people don't often use this. And in order for us to be able to do so, we needed to do two things. One is to make it as friendly, as simple as possible. And in terms of selection of goods, we needed to go with goods that are very common. So basically tier A and tier B kind of products only. So brand names, very familiar. Like no one will question that kind of steel because they know the factory, they know the product, right? We're not going to offer them something that they don't know about. So for us, that becomes more of a commodity rather than something, I need to figure out, test it, see it. No, we went with that decision just to make sure that it gives us enough room to digitize as much as possible.
Would you be able to offer any insights into user behaviors? Or like, I struggle with wrapping my head around it because it feels like such a foreign sort of industry. It's not a space which obviously I'm super familiar with, like an average order size, I don't know, or like even you mentioned brands there. I found that really interesting when I was going through the site and you see, oh my God, there's so many different brands of cement. Like, is brand loyalty a really important thing?
It is.
Yeah,
it is.
That is so.
Because when you go to a project, by the way, a lot of projects have approved vendors. And approved vendors usually are three kind of vendors, right? Like where you, three brands. So like there's plenty of cement, different products. But when you get to a point where you're dealing with the engineer in charge, he sets from day one, I'm going to get type A, B, and C. That's it. So you can't get type D,
Yeah.
right? Because it's not approved.
On the financing side of things,
Yeah.
how easy an upsell is that? Was that always in the roadmap, that was something that you were going to be incorporating? Was that very deliberate?
I think funny enough, I think a lot of our investors understood the concept of embedded financing prior to us thinking about it. We were always looking at it from a perspective of a marketplace. And, we had the sourcing challenge, and then we had the fulfillment challenge, right? And now we have the financing challenge as well. What we've realized, in order for us to tap into larger contractors, we needed to offer financing. And offering financing in this industry isn't as straightforward. You need to have a lot of different alternative sources in order for you to be able to build a financial view, in order for you to be able to underwrite and set a limit and disperse amounts. So for us now, I'm glad where we are today. We're getting much better. We have different iterations of the policy. Now we look at any customer that we want to provide products on credit from 3 different elements. Who's the ultimate owner of that project? And we try to underwrite that entity or that landlord. The second is, what is the ability of the execution of the contractor? Because the contractor, it's not about their financial stability as much as it's about their ability to execute, as a lot of those different amounts are a pass-through from all the way from top till us, right? So it passes through them. And the third, which are the products, right? And what kind of products are we offering on credit? What is the murabaha rate that we offer? And there's different questions that we need to answer.
Are you white labeling any products?
We are. We started getting a couple of products from China.
Okay.
We started white labeling them. We've discovered that there's a gap in the market, right? Where there's either products that we're not able to tap into because of, the price margin is quite tight between the first layer to the end layer. So or there's lack of that product, or the quality is lacking. So we went to a trip to China. This was my first time to actually go to China.
Amazing. What part of China was that?
I went to 7 cities in 1 week. So it was
wow.
Quite intense.
That's intense. Okay.
Yeah. And it wasn't part of the main cities. Like basically we went to Guangzhou, but we went to Linyi, like different cities as well.
Okay.
So, and it was quite a trip, a memorable one. So what we've discovered is that a lot of the products that we are up against are actually made in China, are delivered directly from China all the way to Saudi. And we started offering some of these goods where we found there's a gap that we can fill. If we're able to get the gap filled from domestic players with a reasonable margin, this is something that we do. If we're not able to do so, this is where we expand the margin and go through white labeling goods from China.
What's the AI story? Do you have an AI story?
We do, yeah. Everyone has to
Tell
have
me all
an
about it.
AI
I was going to
story.
say, I was like, what is it? Come on, give it to me.
Can't exist without
give it
an
to
AI
me.
story.
Give me the pitch.
I'll give you the pitch. Look, I think the way that we're thinking about AI is that we do have a wealth of information when it comes to bricks, right? We have 3 years of data when it comes to RFQs, to quotations, to pricing, to different products, to trends of the market. And that, with the right kind of machine learning and the right tools that we use, we will be able to create a lot of products that will create a lot of productivity gains and efficiency gains for us internally and for our customers as well. So if you take, for example, pricing as an example, pricing today requires a couple of different questions or if statements to be answered prior for us sending you a quotation. Funny enough, a lot of these different questions are already answered ahead of time. So if you have the right tools in place that are looking at the right data, I can actually offer you a personalized pricing rather than asking you to submit an RFQ and for you to get a quotation. Imagine like that whole process becomes a legacy.
That time
thing.
lag, which just exists.
You don't need
as
to
sort
wait
of-
for a day. Like for us, we issue it within 20 minutes, right? But that comes at a cost. So imagine if you get it instantly. So that's much faster than anyone else. And honestly, what we would love to believe is that as a group of people, we do understand tech. We all come, or most of us come from a tech background. And a lot of these different advances, we'll start seeing it soon at BRKZ.
So at the moment, we have transaction fees from the sort of marketplace structure. We have financing.
Murabaha rate from financing, yes.
And what's next?
Let's see.
Oh, come on. You have to give me something. Give me something. I don't know, equipment, machinery, contract. I mean, you know.
Look, like I'll tell you what.
Workforce.
There are maybe someone has been looking at our pitch deck. No, look, I think these are the 4 elements, right? So procurement, there's sourcing, financing, there's workforce, and then there's equipment, right? So naturally, if you want to extend what you're doing with other with customers in different areas, these are potentially areas where we could tap into.
Keeping your cards close to your chest as far as that's concerned, but it's okay. It's okay. I respect that. How do you further build stickiness? I guess is one of the things that I'm sort of thinking about from like a switching costs perspective. Obviously, the financing probably helps to that end. And then is it further diversification as far as offering is concerned, or is it, I guess, once you become used to this disruptive way of doing things whereby it's so seamless in comparison to what predated it that you're like, well, why would I go back to that? But I guess, maybe it's difficult for an incumbent because they'd have to cannibalize their own kind of offering to a certain extent. But how do you think about that, the switching cost side of things?
Look, unfortunately, switching cost is very low, right? People can actually switch from one provider to another with a phone call. But I think what builds stickiness is building a meaningful relationship with a customer, making sure that they understand, the value that we bring in, the reliability factor as well. Financing is a part of the offering as well, but sometimes, unfortunately, financing, if there's a bad repayment behavior, it actually works against it rather than with it. So we don't look at it as a retention tool as much as it's an enablement. But we do believe that we offer a wide variety of different products at an affordable price with good reliability and good customer service, right? Like, what else can someone ask for?
It's true. Something I feel like I do a lot of time when I'm analysing companies. I do, Hamilton Helmer's 7 powers framework. So the 7 powers. So you have scale economies, a tick. I'll give you a tick there. You have network economies. Yeah, absolutely. The two-sided marketplace, the data flywheel. Counter positioning. Yes, I would argue. Yeah, switching costs we just touched on. Branding. Talk to me about branding.
We're not the best at branding. We do believe that our product and our service is our brand, and this is what people talk about usually. Like in the industry that we're in, reputation is quite important, and for us, that's the most important thing, and I think that's our brand, and this is what we're focusing on. We're not focused much on marketing. We do have a few experiments here and there, but we do feel that this is a high touch, like networking kind of business model where we need to make sure that people know who they're dealing with. We often meet our customers. We have a relationship with them, so like having that kind of relationship and people appreciating it and us appreciating our partners in success, which are our customers, is our brand.
Yeah, it's unlikely, I suppose, like, you're getting much from organic discovery via SEO.
We're working on it. We got a few orders from it, which is good. It lowers our CAC, cost of acquisition. But then again, like think about it this way. Like we put an effort, right, on getting a customer at the beginning.
Yeah.
But that customer lasts long, and there we typically take a month and around 10 days to actually recoup that investment.
Okay, the cost of acquisition. Okay.
So basically, it takes us 1.1 month in order for us to actually recoup. So it's relatively quite fast and quick, right?
Is that something you've refined over time as well?
Exactly.
As you,
Like typically you would need, a couple of months to actually recoup that,
Yeah.
right? We recoup it in almost 1 month.
Quite quick.
So it's very quick. And I think that's the nature of the industry that we're in, right? And we want to make sure that we get as many customers that are meaningful into the platform, that we are able to serve them in a very reliable manner.
How big is the team at the moment?
Today we're around 100 colleagues. Maybe 1/3 of that are engineers and product. So there's a heavy investment when it comes to, future proofing and creating products for the future.
Okay, branding. Okay, that's 5.
Okay.
6, cornered resource. I feel like we can, we're in terms of
pass.
and then process power is one of those invariably. It takes time. What does Bricks look like in 5 years' time?
Oh, look, I can give you an answer. My challenge is that I don't believe in that lengthy time horizon, right? These things change so rapidly. There's a lot of different pivots that happens. I do believe that as a company, we are actually working more towards creating an ecosystem, more towards catering for, like different players in the industry. It doesn't have to be only contractors. So now there's a focus on factories. There's a focus on different kind of players in the industry itself. I feel like we are working through going 1 layer or 2 layers up in the value chain as well as we speak. Financing is becoming a bit more sophisticated, and we're going to get more people involved into that. There's a hopefully a marketplace in the future of different players that want to participate in that, and we can provide them with the right data and underwriting and opportunities as well. So there's plenty of things to do. I think these are the areas where we are focusing on right now. Maybe something else might appear after a while, maybe. I think our advantage in tech still has to basically prove itself. We are building a lot of things right now, and we do feel like these things will start adding up at a certain point. I think our digital adoption is quite good so far compared to others in the industry. But we do need to get to a point where we use a lot of these tools that we are seeing right now in order for it to actually make us more advanced, more resilient, more future-proof.
Have AI tools made much of a difference from an engineering perspective internally within your team?
It does, yeah. So all of our colleagues, and this is a company initiative where they have a co-pilot, right? Okay. Where a lot of, and I think we've recently launched something where it was mostly done through AI, okay, which is great, right? And you hear about these things, but you don't often see it.
No.
Now you see it. And we have a tool, for example, in finance called Finance AI, and basically it reconciles between invoices and POs, right? That we get from, and it typically takes a full resource to do this. Now, we can dedicate that colleague to actually do something else rather than do this with minimal interaction, like interference into that. And now we want to start testing more use cases. So I think with the AI, it's not about creating this one grand thing. It's like, where can you input it within the process to make it more efficient and more productivity? You get more productivity gain out of it.
What are you most excited about from a regional perspective as far as the tech ecosystem at large is concerned?
I think we're going through different evolutions. I think at the beginning, when we were discussing this earlier, I think WAMDA event at some point was the spark, right? Mm-hmm. When we started. I think back then Jordan was at the frontier of this. And I think there was a milestone of the the Maktoob acquisition. where, you know, people at that moment of time believe that, it's actually possible, you know, because at that point it was mostly textbook, right? You can get acquired. Yeah. Now someone got acquired, right? So a lot of people started believing, and we saw a wave of different. And I think Careem was a milestone and a point that, you know, a lot of different people are reflecting upon, where we started seeing such a valuation given to a startup in the region, right? So it's no longer we're getting acquired, but acquired for a small amount relatively to what we see in the West. No, but this is real. This is big. And I think what we've done correct at Careem, and, you know, I've tried to do the same thing in my company, where everyone gets options, meaningful options, right? Where if the company gains, everyone gains, and everyone will gain. And I think what was great at that moment of time is that you saw a lot of companies pop up after the acquisition of Careem. And I think that next wave of entrepreneurship happened because a lot of people were giving that financial freedom, was given that, you know, ability for them to actually step up and get outside of their role, although it was not in the best interest of Careem at that moment. But I know Mudassir didn't think about it and Magnus only in that perspective, but thought about how can this enable a full ecosystem moving forward that lives beyond Careem. So we've lived, I think, true to our mission to basically create an institute that inspires, and that basically created more companies that inspired. And I'm hoping now with the likes of, you know, like different companies that we're seeing either in Saudi or in UAE or Egypt, there's plenty of companies that can, you know, create more value. If you see today at every single sector or industry, there's someone trying to disrupt and innovate and do. Like if you look at groceries, there's plenty. If you look at restaurants, there's plenty. If you look at financing, there's a lot. If you look at banking, there's a few, right? So you look at it, it's more diversified definitely than back when I first started in 2005. There's definitely a lot of thoughts. There's definitely a lot of support that we're seeing from different governments and in enablement from the private sector as well. We have seen a lot of different players actually show up from abroad as well, which is uplifting as well the ecosystem, which is great. So yeah, I'm quite optimistic. I think it's a great time for you to be an entrepreneur in this region. This is a great time to start.
Is there any problem that you wish more startups were focusing on? Aside from construction.
I have to keep something for the next one, no? I can't spill the beans.
Please. Let us in.
No, I'm kidding. I think look, in terms of the big ones, most of them are covered. Mm-hmm. I think then you start getting into the niche kind of startups, which I promised myself not to get into more niche stuff moving forward. So I'm focusing more on the
macro, larger.
Exactly.
Yeah. Thank you very, very much for your time. This is really, really, really enjoyable. So
thank you so very much. I really appreciate it.
Amazing.
Thank you.
Very good.